Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Fit for an Autopsy. Oh, what the future holds. Out January 14th on Nuclear Blast. This album has 10 tracks, 45 minutes in length in this the band's 6 full-length studio album. They are an American deathcore band. As far as the design of the record is concerned, I like the format because it's a format that I've seen from them before, bringing two sides of the same coin together. On one hand, you have an album that's very balanced, very cohesive, very together as far as the songs are concerned. They really work well with one another in the overall context of the record. On the other hand, you have a lot of volatility from track to track, a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of nuances, making the record feel very dynamic, very fluid, very engaging. You don't always see these two worlds coming together, but Fit for an Autopsy has always found a way of merging them as one, creating albums that have incredible playability because you're not really sure what's coming around the corner. But at the same time, that chaos, that diversity doesn't really push you that far off the beaten path, so it allows you to stay close to home, giving this sense of comfort to the overall experience while introducing new elements with every single track. Once you move on to the soundscape, this record does not reinvent the wheel, and it doesn't create something completely new that we haven't seen from the band. Perhaps the truth is a little bit in between those two worlds. I like what they did with this record because it feels like the next logical step after the Sea of Tragic Beasts. This album sonically really feels like the continuation of that record, and that is an important step. You don't want to take a side step, you want to take a step forward, but you want to carry forward all the things that you've done well up to this point. When you look back at the 5 previous records, there are enough in there that you can really build upon, and then obviously add some new nuances with this new album in order for this to sound like a different record, but still have the spinal cord and the DNA of Fit for an Autopsy. That's exactly how this album comes across sound-wise. It's very punchy, perhaps a little bit more brutal, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more organic as their previous album was. I felt like the Sea of Tragic Beasts perhaps had a little bit more atmosphere in their music. It was a little bit more introspective. It had some more melancholy, spread around every single track. This album still has a lot of those elements there, but overall the message that you're getting musically out of this record is one of aggression, is one of intensity, is one of anger. There's a lot of anger built into this album, and it comes across in its sound. This is a very potent sounding record. It doesn't really hold back, but it still allows all the different elements to be able to be noticeable. You can digest this album super easily, regardless of how many layers they threw upon it. The album has a simple approach to it. You listen to this record, you feel that intensity, you feel that aggression, you feel that brutality, and then you can start to break down what is creating those nuances. So it's a record that really offers itself to the listener for you to enjoy at first glance. Just go through it and enjoy the aggression that it has, and then at second glance come back into it and dive a little bit deeper into it and see what is beneath the surface. Incredible record from that perspective. Now, what drives this album? In my opinion, there are 3 elements. 2 that match with the overall soundscape, and 1 that sits a little bit on the outside. So for me, the drums, guitars are the ones that tie into the soundscape of the record, and then the lyrical content and vocals, that's the other pillar, if you will, of this album. As far as the drums are concerned, I really like the consistency that they offer. The drums on this record allow you to gravitate and stay connected and really balance the album throughout. It has an incredible ability to make this record feel consistent, regardless of the volatility that exists musically within the tracks. You're always getting a consistent approach from the drums, and that is important. It creates that red line all the way through it. There's other red lines, but I really feel like the strongest one, or the one that ties them all together, is the sound of the drums, the execution of the drums, and what they're doing song in and song out as you progress down the line throughout the entire album. On the other hand, you have the guitars. Perhaps some of the chaos, some of the diversity that this album has comes from the guitar approach because it's very versatile. You're going to get a lot of things. You're going to get some chunkiness. That chunky grinding sound of Fit for an Autopsy is definitely there on the guitar side. You also see some prog elements, some technical death metal elements coming into play that add a little bit of flavor, that add a little bit of direction, that help these songs feel a little bit more layered, that gives you more as a listener, and it doesn't allow the album to be just one-dimensional throughout. Really important aspect. The guitar solos on this album, phenomenal. I always felt like they added life to the tracks, and this record is no different. Sometimes they really feel like an outburst of energy or an outburst of emotion, and instead of using the vocals or the lyrics to give you that outburst. That outburst comes at you sonically in the guitar solos. Really well done throughout. Now, when you look at the lyrics and you look at the vocals, you kind of have to put them both in the same camp, because one drives the other and the other drives the other. So they're both interconnected. They're both tied in together, and they really pull and push off of each other really well throughout the entire album. I've always been a fan of the lyrical content of Fit for an Autopsy, and this album doesn't disappoint. It stays down that path of allowing you to really dive deep into these lyrics and perhaps guess yourself or second guess yourself or question yourself about how you feel towards these topics, how you feel towards the subject matter of the album and the subject matter of each and every single song. While the record is not a concept album, the thought-provoking process that these lyrics put forward really stays consistent and linear throughout the entire record. Something I've always enjoyed about this band, and I'm glad they continue to do it album in and album out. It never gets old from my perspective. On the other hand, Joe on vocals really brings the lyrical content to life. He's phenomenal on this album. One of my favorite vocalists in deathcore, and on this record, I start to feel like he's zoned in into the approach that he wants to have and how he wants to deliver the lyrical content and the emotion that the songs have. On this record, I felt like he was a little bit looser, a little bit more organic, a little bit more raw, perhaps even a little bit more aggressive. I like that side. I like that approach. It fits musically perfectly into what is happening. When you look at his approach vocally and you see the sound behind it, the two go hand in hand. But when it was time to go into a darker place, he was also able to go there. So incredible vocal performance, and how he brings the stories out of those lyrics, the emotion out of those lyrics. He really squeezes every ounce of juice that exists there, and then he tries to be that bridge that really merges the sonic side of the band, the sound, what is happening there, with the lyrical content and the message that you're trying to put forward. Incredible performance by Joe on this album. As far as this overall record goes, it's a more brutal, a more honest record, perhaps even more direct, to the point, not really holding back, not really taking you down a path and trying to make you overthink what you're doing. This record is straight to the point, musically and vocally. A lot different from that perspective when you look back at their previous album. But if you look at the two of them, I really feel like they're connected with one another. This is not a concept, neither was the previous one, and there's no idea here of really merging one with the other. But if you look at the previous album and you look at this album, they really look like the continuation of one to the other. You think about the Sea of Tragic Beasts as a dream, and then when you wake up from that dream, you realize you're living a nightmare. That's how this album sounds like. That's how this album feels. That's the sense of continuity that these two records offer. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Two Towers. The bass really pops on this song, specifically in the intro, pushing in a little bit more of a technical prog vibe into how this song gets started. But then there's these melancholic vocals, clean vocals, that come into that sound. Works really well. It brings the mood of the song straight down, and you think that that's exactly where it's going to stay, but it's not, because then the song really pushes itself forward, becomes a lot heavier, a lot punchier, and you see the song morphing and growing and evolving as you start progressing down the line. The verses become very wavy in its sound approach. You really feel like you're navigating through a sea as far as the verses are concerned. The vocals navigate through that sea extremely well. They actually emphasize the movements of the sound, which makes the two work really well with one another, and it creates a much clearer picture of what's happening sonically throughout that entire portion of the song once you are stuck in those verses. Once you move into the chorus feels a little bit more intense, a little bit more direct. It doesn't hide. It doesn't try to weave you in. It just comes straight to the point, musically and vocally. This allows the track to feel consistent on one hand, and on the other hand to have a lot of movement and to be very dynamic. The solo is phenomenal, and it really complements the track well. It actually gives a sense of conclusion to the track, even though the song does not end with a solo. Next we have Collateral Damage, a no-holds-barred type track from the beginning. It comes at you with aggression and heaviness from the start. The guitars sound outstanding on this track. They're so volatile, they're melodic, they're heavy, they're weaving through the two experiences, really creating a lot of sound, really creating a lot of motion. The vocals are a little bit more consistent, a little bit more balanced from beginning to end, and the chorus is super hooky. So you have a song that has mobility and sound, consistency and vocals, and a super hooky, catchy chorus adds all together with a lot of volume, with a lot of heaviness, with a lot of aggression, with an outstanding solo that brings in a little bit of light into a song that at times just feels overwhelming with the aggression that it has, and it's a flat out banger of a track beginning all the way to the end. Last but not least, Conditional Healing. I like the build-up of this track, and after that slow build-up, that slow burn build-up, the song dives into this blender of sound. You're not really sure if you're moving forward, if you're moving backwards, if you're going sideways. The sound just starts to move you around, and it becomes to spiral you out of control throughout this entire track. It becomes very volatile, the song itself becomes very chaotic, and then you see some chaos becoming a little bit more defined once you move into the chorus. The chorus defines some boundaries, allows the song to have a little bit of a pause or a little bit of a reprieve, if you will, from all that volatility that we see in the verses. Musically and vocally, the song is phenomenal. It has a lot of life. It feels like it has a heartbeat on both ends. There's two different hearts happening within the same track. The chunkiness of the guitars becomes a little bit of the fingerprint, or perhaps the heavy stamp that really puts this song on the map from beginning all the way to the end. Phenomenal track. This is it. Fit for an Autopsy. Oh, what the future holds. Out January 14th. What a way to start off 2022 with a Fit for an Autopsy album. Let me know your thoughts on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.